But one of the scenes was the hero Dash has, I forget which type of spider. It was a jumping spider. He had jumped on its back and wrapped some web around its neck, and he was riding it like a bucking bronco in a scene, like literally in a cowboy scene. And that just wasn't, the technology wasn't, and the money wasn't quite there yet for that. So sadly, that scene had to go.
Hey everybody, this is Jesse from NewWayStories. We have a very special guest with us today. It is Eric Miller. He is an author, screenwriter, works in Hollywood. It's going to be a fun conversation with me, as always. Ben, our producer, and Darius Giles, our host.
Love that guy.
He's so good. And of course, Peter making an appearance again. Eric, welcome to the podcast, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, I appreciate being here so much. And I'm not special. I appreciate you saying that I'm special. I don't know who came up with it in the first place, but one of my favorite sayings is I have delusions of adequacy. So
that's a great autobiography. The delusions of adequacy.
Exactly.
Man, well, I will tell you, I have a few people, from time to time reach out to, get people on the podcast, usually promoting books. And when I think probably your agent or whatever reached out and was like, we got this new book. It reminded me of the title, Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed.
Uncle Ed.
Yep.
Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed. Yes.
Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed. And she goes, new horror book, Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed. And then he's also a screenwriter for ScyFy Channel original Ice Spiders. I go, well, this is maybe the most exciting thing I've seen for a while. I went out, I bought the book immediately because I'm like 100 pages in. I wanted to get it completely read before we talked, but
immediately I'm like, what the frick is going on with Uncle Ed?
That's the greatest endorsement. I could put it down. 100 pages. That's pretty good, though.
Listen,
this book will not take over your life. You will still be able to function.
This will put you to sleep if you have insomnia.
I have gone through quite a lot since Peter's been born almost 4 months ago. It takes me 4 or 5 times to try to get through a movie, books, or, it's, so it is nothing to the writing.
And the baby's not reading yet?
It is all to Peter. Well, I did read a chapter. I did read a chapter out loud to him. My wife was like, we need to read more books to him. I go, no problem.
Yes, that's been my dream ever, to warp a future generation. That's incredible.
Because
they'll come out in therapy 30 years from now. What screwed you up?
What screwed you up? You go, I don't know, man. There was this gate to another dimension. We're saving.
Where's my E.L. James collection?
What a cut. So yeah, man, I was excited by it, and like campy horror stuff is my jam. I mentioned, I think before we started recording, the comps to my book are like Tremors, where it's just this kind of like campy monster movie that has got like some brilliant humor in it, but also some moments of like real suspense and the creature horror. That's
the best description of my book. Oh wait, you were talking about Tremors. Oh, never mind.
No, but that's exactly right though. 100 plus pages in, that is the vibe that I'm getting, and I really do. It's a lot of fun, and thank you. You've done a great job. We'll get into the book a little bit more. So actually, I don't want to burn that lead. Let's start with this. You work in Hollywood, right?
Yes.
Would that be your? I guess your full-time job is just
my
creator, right?
Yeah. When there's work, of course, Hollywood's a weird place. And that's the ultimate horror, is actually working in Hollywood. It all sounds kind of glamorous. And yes, it has its high points, and it's fun, and to be part of a team and be part of creation, and every now and then hang a piece of art. But it's a grind. There's no way around it. I mean, everyone from crew to directors to celebrities, everyone will echo the same thing. And the sound bites, we all try to make it sound real, but it's a grind sometimes. Like I literally just had almost an 18-hour day yesterday, so wow. Yeah, I'm jamming the caffeine right now and gone a little sleep. So if I fall asleep mid sentence, that's probably why.
I think we have a decent amount of early 20s listeners that strive to be creatives, I think, or at least have some sort of creative aspiration. I think that's that's the thought, right? When you're in high school or maybe college, whatever, you go, oh, I just dropped the binky. Oh, darn it.
I thought about that all the time.
I thought about that in high school.
All the
many times in college.
I just dropped the binky, and I don't mean that as a euphemism. That you go, I want to like be a creative, and you have the picture of your famous celebrity actor, musician, rock star, whatever, and you go, that's what I'm going to be. But 90%, maybe more, of creatives who do it for a living, it's a completely different story, right? And I think that is actually a very realistic goal. I think you say, we've talked about this before, but if you go, my goal is to be a famous person, you go, that's probably not going to work. But if your goal is to be a writer or a performer and make a living, like a livable wage, that's actually not that crazy of a goal.
Right. Well, my advice to people is always, and this is whether you're a writer, an artist, a screenwriter, a musician, whatever, it sounds corny, maybe to some, but do it for the love of the art. Do it because you want to express yourself. Do it because you want to inspire others. If you end up making millions of dollars and living in a mansion, that's the gravy on top. And I just think that's some of the soulless art and music and all those things that we have as people who set out with that goal. Or I want to be a celebrity. I want people to love me. Okay, you're damaged. You need therapy. But if you want to create, you want to entertain. And there's nothing wrong with people who are celebrities and do it excellently well. And some of them are people who we can aspire to. And it's like, wow, where did you get those abs? And that's smart conversation, even if somebody else wrote it. But do it for the art. Do it for please yourself, make yourself happy, be happy with your art, and then hopefully other people find it and buy millions of books and records. And you do, and then you get then you wind up on TMZ drunk in an alley, and
that's what you can hope for.
That's a goal in and of itself. I have that one
on my 5-year plan.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So let's rewind the clocks back to 2007 ish. Ice Spiders screenplay for a ScyFy Channel original, right?
Yes.
Okay, walk me through the process. I watched. It's free on Amazon, by the way. Go ahead and watch it. So if you got like a 3-cent like royalty check for that, you're welcome. I watched it.
What is this royalty? I've never heard of those.
You don't see any royalty from?
No, I don't get a dime. I get endless love, admiration. People stop me on the street and worship me, and that's payment in and of itself. But I don't.
So that's actually money. I'm actually curious about the industry aspect of that. Do you write Ice Spiders, which is a movie about spiders that escape from a lab and then terrorize a ski resort town?
It's based on a true story, of course.
Based on right.
They covered it up.
Like whatever you're picturing, you nailed it. You did it. That's what it is. So do you write Ice Spiders and then sell it to ScyFy Channel? Do they go, hey Eric, we saw some of your work, we want a campy horror movie? What's the process there?
So a combination of that. The ScyFy Channel originals were a little bit different aspect, and this particular movie and at least one other that I wrote for them or wound up with them, a little bit different. So backing up a little bit, in general, the way Hollywood works, you write a spec script, which speculative script that's on your own. And if anybody out here is listening, do not write a spec script based upon somebody else's property. As much as you love Spider-Man or whatever it is, don't write. It's not yours. Don't do that. But it's a sample essentially. So write something that's original, and you hope there's two that kind of splits off from there. You hope that somebody loves your sample, buys it, and once again gives you millions of dollars so you can wind up in that alley behind the whiskey. But you write that, try to get an agent, try to get a manager, try to get a studio or a producer to buy it. So I've done a million of those. Sometimes you're also lucky once you've got that sample, that spec out there, people may like it. If they don't necessarily buy it, and this is what happened to me, I had written quite a few things and working behind the scenes in production. Every producer I'd work for, I would annoy the hell out of them. Read my script, which you're probably not supposed to do, but do it anyway. It's okay. So eventually one of the producers I had worked with a lot, who became a pretty good friend, had a deal with the ScyFy channel. And he knew that I could write, liked it. We obviously got along for some strange reason. And he approached me and asked me to write this. They had a title, the opening scene, the vague opening scene of hunters being attacked by something while they're hunting, and the image of a giant spider coming down a ski line as if it were a web. And so he hired me on behalf of the channel because he was an approved producer. The way I understand it, the general way for the ScyFy channel themselves was that people would submit log lines, titles first, Sharknado, whatever it would be, Mansquito, Sharknado, all those brilliant, wonderful titles. And then if they like that, then you go to the log line.
Mansquito.
The Portmanteau channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you go.
Welcome to Portmanteau Channel, where we take your favorite things and smash them together with your other favorite things.
I mean, it worked for years.
I'm so sorry.
Whatever works. Hey, I mean, art is where you find it. I mean, seriously. I mean, come on. I wrote Ice Spiders and Swamp Shark. What are you going to say?
Let's go, baby.
Zero portmanteaus. Disappointed.
And sadly, my greatest spec script ever that never got made was Chihuahua, that smashing chihuahuas and piranhas together.
There it is.
How they didn't see my genius. But anyway, so you would go from title to logline to treatment, and eventually, if they like it at all these steps, and that becomes, I guess, probably some panel of either marketing executives or a bunch of kids in the Midwest, when they flash cards in front of them, go, "Oh, I want to see that," or which is probably the same reaction from both groups. They would then go to commission the full script. So you write the full script, and then, as in my case, the script comes in wildly too expensive and insane for what they wanted to do. And if you're lucky, they smack you on the head with a ruler and say, "Write this better and cheaper," and so that you can actually make it. Or they fire you and hire somebody else to rewrite it, which is a very common Hollywood thing. So, again, that's just for the ScyFy channel. There's other variations of that. Hopefully your scripts get out there through your agent, your manager, your whoever, and through pitch sessions, and somebody somewhere likes it and either buys it, hopefully buys the spec, or says, "Hey, could you work on this? Could you write this?" Or you write a brilliant best-selling novel, and somebody of the millions of people at all the studio development departments are reading it and go, "Wow, this would make a great movie." And again, they back up the dump truck full of cash and jewels to your house and dump it out, and that hire somebody else to make the screenplay. So complicated ways of getting scripts made, but hopefully that explains how Ice Spiders got made.
Follow-up question. How close is like what I see on Amazon Prime? How close is that to like your script or like your original script?
Well, the original, very, very close, actually. I didn't deviate a whole lot from it. It was a lot more complicated. Some scenes got cut out. Along the note process, I had to trim some scenes and characters, but others that I liked, I sneakily kind of made wider and broader and put more things back in. But it's pretty close to what the idea was. Well, I think fun. One of my favorite scenes that got cut out, and even as I wrote it, I knew that it was never going to get in there. I tried to did a lot of research into spiders, which I don't necessarily like, but they turn out to be actually incredibly fascinating. But one of the scenes was the hero Dash has, I forget which type of spider. It was a jumping spider. He had jumped on its back and wrapped some web around its neck, and he was riding it like a bucking bronco in a scene, like literally in a cowboy scene. And that just wasn't, the technology wasn't, and the money wasn't quite there yet for that. So sadly, that scene had to go, and it probably went to somebody fighting off a spider puppet in the snow. So
it was 2007. So I mean, the CG
wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah,
and still might not be, but I'm sure James Cameron could do that. Full permission. That winds up, Mr. Cameron. If that winds up in one of your movies, I'm not going to sue. I swear. I just want to see a guy riding a giant jumping spider like a bronco.
Can't wait to see that. In Avatar 4, it's actually going to be the primary theme of the movie.
It's swamp
exactly.
shark.
Everyone needs to find your own jumping spider.
They go to the spider planet.
There's only one way for us to beat the sky, people.
To love our environment. And
good audition. I think you might be hired for that.
Yeah, that's been the dream.
So has that been like this similar journey for each screenplay for you?
Yeah, for me, I've kind of run the gamut of getting them made, either annoying the ever living hell out of the producers that I was working for, Or in that particular instance, that producer, Jeff Shank, who hired me for Ice Spiders, he had read one of my werewolf scripts and knew another producer that was looking for one. That turned out to be the producer of Dog Soldiers, who, unknown to me, Jeff passed my script along, and David
That's a pretty great friend.
Yeah, it actually is, and that's the way it works in Hollywood too.
That's
so
cool.
I mean, people, it's all about hyper networking as much as you go the traditional route, and you can answer ads online and get the agent, get the manager. It really does come down to networking and marketing yourself in that way. But David Allen had read my werewolf script called Hunters, and thought, the way I remember it, he wanted to make it Dog Soldiers 2 or some variation of it, and it was weirdly under option to another producer. I had that brief moment where everyone's wanting my stuff. Like, what's happening here?
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm slightly above adequate all of a sudden. What's going on?
I'm gonna have to tell my therapist.
Exactly right. I can afford a therapist now. Great. Instead of just putting all the weird shit on the page. But so my werewolf script was under option, and so I was hired to write. And this is another way of getting it done in Hollywood. If you're really an amazingly brilliant screenwriter and terrific personality and shockingly good looking, they will hire you to write a screenplay. In my case, I think nobody else was available, but so they hired me to write Dog Soldiers 2, which is tied up in a whole lot of things. And I hope that either my version or somebody's version that gets made, because I'm a giant fan of the original movie and the characters in the story. So hopefully that'll get made somewhere, but it's been quite a while on that. So that's another way as a work for hire. And Hollywood has changed since then. I know 2007, that's probably half the audience wasn't even born then, or some distant.
That's probably true, yeah.
And I barely remember it anymore. So it's like when 2000 what? Where was I? I have to go through my own IMDb list sometimes to remember what I even worked on. So I forgot about that. It's been this big blur. But it's changed a lot. I mean, there's screenplay competitions of various quality and work. There's the Blacklist, the Blood List, if it's still going. I think somebody should start the Green List maybe for Hulk and Godzilla movies. Maybe that's my thing, the Godzilla channel. But there's so many different ways of getting scripts made. And there's also the other way is, especially in television, is you come up as a writer's assistant or as a script coordinator, and you get to know the writer's room. And eventually, if you're really, really lucky or really, really good, they go, hey, why don't you write an episode of this? So that's gotten increasingly hard because the employment in Hollywood has gone it's really, really gone south as much as there's so much content out there that you can barely even keep track of what's on. We've really contracted, and there's just simply not as many jobs as there were before. So it's harder and harder to get in a writing room. But once you're there, once you know somebody and once you do a great job, that's the way, that's one of the other many paths into selling a screenplay.
That's so interesting. So obviously, and I really appreciate you sharing that. That's I know it probably is kind of old hat for you, or maybe gets boring. And so I'll try not to ask too many more questions about it, but so fun for the listeners and for me and for Jesse and Ben to be able to hear just some of those funny behind the scenes sausage factory things. Sausage Factory, also a great Sausage Factory, also a great cover band name. I don't know what they would cover, but we could find something to have the band Sausage Factory cover. But yeah, it's fun for us to be able to hear that stuff. Mike, real quick before we jump into the book, is there, which obviously we're excited to talk about, is there anything that you mentioned Dog Soldiers 2? Is there anything that you've written, either that you haven't put the final touches on as a novel, or you wrote like a spec script and you were like, this is my favorite thing, it's just the most fun, or it like is the most maybe some of my best work, but it hasn't made its way to the page or screen or to the publisher or to the screen yet? Are there some examples of stuff like that just? Oh yeah, and every writer has that. I mean, even novelists. I mean, it's like hard enough to write your first novel or any novel, but then you hear that like, oh, they wrote 6 more before they showed anybody, or they or the real goal is that you when you're younger and you have energy, you write, and eventually the 6th or 7th one that you write gets made, and then suddenly you pretend that you produced all these others that were actually in your drawer. So, or the ones that everybody rejected, and suddenly they're like, oh, this is brilliant. Like, really? Because you passed on
on it 5 years ago, but hey, whatever, give me the check.
Yeah.
But actually, my last screenplay that I wrote, and it's been 4 or 5 years now since I wrote it, and it's about 95% of my original, and I tweaked it a little bit. My good friend Shane pointed out a little bit that I missed on it, which was kind of in there, but not nearly emphasized enough. And it's by far the favorite thing that I've written. It may or may not be the best thing that I've written, but it's the favorite. It's kind of it's a horror homage to the William Friedkin movie Sorcerer, which is also a remake of a French movie, Wages of Fear, and I believe a French novel, where if you know the film or if you don't know it, watch it. It's kind of a masterpiece of tension and character and developing, and just some of the most brilliant late 70s filmmaking ever, involved about 2 different truckloads and 4 different guys at the bottom depths of their tortured lives, accepting a job to take dynamite across war-torn South America.
Oh, wow.
And so it's kind of it's a trucking, thrilling drama, tension, and the stories behind the making of Sorcerer are amazing. And it kind of got buried. It's Roy Scheider in one of his best parts ever as the lead.
Interesting.
And I believe, I'm forgetting which movie, but it came out, opposite Jaws or Star Wars or something back in the day. And suddenly, nobody gives a damn about 4 guys driving 2 trucks across South America. But it's absolutely brilliant filmmaking. My version is I replace the dynamite in the trucks with a haunted house that's an actual sentient, from page 1, evil, active, haunted house. Yeah. And kind of a Harry Potter-ish, as an adult kind of character who's a magician, has to basically contain the house, put it on the back of a truck with a bunch of hard scrabble movers, and move it across the country to get it. The whole plot is get it to Area 51 so we can isolate it and get it away from people, because it eats souls and gets more powerful. So it's a trucking adventure. Awesome. And I pulled out all the stops, and in so many ways it's kind of the accumulation of my screenwriting. I managed to do something I've never done before, which I previously hated, which is basically get all of the story, character, plot, and setup on page 1, just open with a complete bang instead of taking 20 pages like I usually do, being old school. And I mix in music and humor and comedy and action and real horror and visuals, and I do everything great. And I'm at a point in my career where no one wants to read anything. And I'm like, oh, damn it.
Oh, I
finally wrote the best script ever. So
that is... I'm not just trying to be nice, because if I didn't have anything nice to say, I just wouldn't say anything. I just go, oh, wow, that is like such a cool original. I've never, I mean, obviously a lot of people have done the Sorcerer motif, right? Where it's 4 guys, don't have anything left, gonna do they did like Triple Frontier. They just did that movie on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it's like same, it's a stolen concept, but yours, that's like such a crazy, unique, we've got transport. I've never seen anyone.
And it's a giant. And believe me, I watch a million house moving things. And there's a house in there's a gigantic house in my brother's small town that a friend of his put on the back of a trailer and just moved it like X amount of miles. But crazy. I'm looking at the house and go, how the hell did you do that? So I'm immediately on YouTube. Is this concept even possible? And it is. It's amazing, these giant moving things. So it's a lot of fun. And like what I like to do is just smash genres together. It's one of my styles. So it's everything. And it's actually the first really magical realism thing that I did, that we're in a world where magic is real and the hero is kind of a sorcerer and he has these powers. Right. And there's a huge, one of my favorite characters is this government person who's this ageless woman who's basically the most powerful person in the world, who's just in charge of covering everything up. I think one of her great lines is, just everything's going to shit and falling apart. And somebody says, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "This is more fun than covering up Roswell." I just have so much fun with so many elements of all this stuff. And like, who is this person? And but it's also very blue collar, which is something I do in a lot of my work. So and to answer your question, I'm since apparently film rights available, it's a great spec, somebody buy it. But if it doesn't get picked up by anybody, by any of this, the brilliant, wonderful Hollywood executives who are the most amazing people ever. Is that sucking up enough? I've been toying. A
lot of them listen to this.
Yes. All of them listen to this. All the executives do. You're amazing. You're beautiful.
Hold on, let's do a phone call right now.
Yeah, the phone's ringing. But no, I'm toying with turning that into a novel. Also, it's a little tough because I have a music element and stuff, which is harder to do on the page. But it's because that's intrinsic, kind of like Baby Driver. It's intrinsic to this character that he uses music as a way to shield himself against many things. But playing with that, and it's a lot of fun. And like a lot of screenplays, it's it's I can actually go bigger places with the story. You can go further because especially a feature screenplay is you're very limited. These days, you're lucky to hit, sell something that's 90 pages long. The old rule was 120 pages,
Wow.
which roughly equated to a page a minute as the old Hollywood standby with variations of that. But even now, it's even hard to sell a 120-page screenplay, and they mostly make TV. So it's a little tough. But in the novel format, you actually get to expand it quite a bit and do it. So I'm playing with that, and it's one of my favorite things. And like I said earlier, write something for yourself, whether anyone ever makes it or not. And another hard thing, if I can go on a quick aside, the problem, as it were, with screenplays, once you write them, and if they don't sell, it's done. Or if you send it out through your agent, your manager, whatever, in Hollywood, all the producers, everyone passes on it, it doesn't get made, it's done. And so many writer friends, screenwriter friends have the shelf full of scripts, which are great stories, great characters, great ideas. It's dead. So the beauty of a novel, even if it's self-published, even if you don't manage to get to Random House or something, or if you put it up on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever, it has life. Someone can still buy that novel, can still buy that collection, buy that anthology. People 50, 60 years from now can find that story and either and read it and enjoy it. A screenplay, it's dead. And there's something very, very sad about that. And I hope that more screenwriters try and turn it into another format, or even, I don't know if anybody does this, I'm sure they do, but even publish them like a book, like a novel.
I think that's cool.
I'm sure, and I'm sure there are repositories where you can read screenplays, but I think those are mostly finished screenplays or produced screenplays. And it would be nice to have that whole world out there where you can just go read what one of your favorite writers wrote. And so it is kind of sad that stories are lost, but I like to recycle them. So
I actually, one of my favorite screenwriters is David Koepp. I think that's how you say his last name. He wrote Jurassic Park, right? I actually didn't realize that I liked him until, I don't know, I was going through my DVDs, looking at the back of the box, and 7 of them were written by David Koepp, written by David Koepp. I was like, oh, I think I actually really like this guy. But recently he's started to do novels, and they are making Cold Storage is coming out. That was a novel about a kind of a mutant mushroom spore. Super cool book. But then he's now they've got the screenplay option to it. And it kind of seems like, at least the trend in Hollywood, to me, they don't, big studios or whatever don't really like to gamble. So if you see a book that, sells a lot of copies or has a dedicated fan base, then they're going to say, oh, we'll turn that into a screenplay, right? That's rather than kind of what you were saying, once the screenplay makes its rounds, it's done. That's kind of it. But even to your point, a self-published book, Andy Weir, The Martian, that was a self-published book. It has a chance. It has a chance to take off and to be turned into a screenplay, right? And then obviously that opens up so many more doors. Not more doors, but more doors.
Sauron. Where are you?
Go for it, Ben.
I have a question, and because just before we go on to the novel, I always notice there are certain trends in movies, whether it's in big blockbusters or small projects, and like 2012 or in that era, there was it was always the big blue portal in the sky, or certain things like that. Is that something where executives are all right, this idea, this close, this final act, this type of thing sells, or is it just you guys happen? Whoever's all the writers selling ideas, or they just happen to have the similar ideas for a plot element or something to in the final act? That's a good question, and I can only just kind of guess at the answer. I think it's a combination of everything you're saying. To get really existential, or whatever some fancy word is about creativity and where do ideas come from? Are we
Some people would say that we're writers, artists, whatever, we're breaking the dimensions to another world and we're channeling things that are out there. Or are we in some collective consciousness where we all have the same idea at the same time? Or did you just see something and subconsciously you went, ooh, a guy with spider powers, that's fun. I think it's a combination of that. And some of those, there's a few Hollywood executives. Most of them, again, are completely brilliant, wonderful, beautiful human beings that are the greatest people on the planet. But some of them, a very small subset of them, see something and are reactionary. It's like, ooh, that worked. Let's make a superhero movie. Like Marvel's making $1 billion. Where's my superheroes? And then so you go out. So it's a good question on that. I always marvel. I had the exact same kind of thought. Like I watch a lot of YouTube these days, trying to see what the youths are up to. And I heard about this YouTube thing. What are kids watching? But it's like suddenly reaction videos, which I love some, and it's all about the person and the personality. And sometimes it's just a way to watch a movie in 20 minutes while they're reacting and hit the highlights instead of having to watch the whole damn thing. But all of a sudden, at least my feed fills up with everybody, every reaction channel that I know of is watching the exact same movie, reacting to the same movie or the same song. And I'm like, is there a reaction central? Do they all have an agent? Does suddenly somebody puts up a movie and says, let's do Godzilla versus the Smog Monster this week? Because suddenly everyone is watching that movie and reacting. So, or like we said, did somebody else see it and go, oh, that would be fun, I want to watch it too. And it just becomes a spontaneous, kind of viral proliferation. So it's a long-winded, hopefully semi-intelligent way of saying I have no effing idea.
Well, I think
I've noticed, like, because Jesse said that movie by that one writer with the spores and the mushrooms, and I feel like you had Last of Us had like a lot of, and I was reading a comic recently, I forget which one, and there was a similar kind of like fungus growing, and it's just I'm just picking up a lot. I'm reading a lot of stories and seeing a lot of stories about this.
I mean, really ice spiders back in 2007, right? There was Eight-Legged Freaks that was around the same time. There was a few,
and some executive at the ScyFy channel was probably skiing in Aspen and then saw Eight-Legged Freaks had sold a lot and went, hey, that's
right.
Who knows where that genius. There was also, I think it was probably the 90s and early 2000s, there seemed to be, and Hollywood in particular, there were always two movies at the same time on the same theme.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excuse me. It would be like Meteor and Comet, or I forget. Well, that was one of the most famous ones. But why are there two Meteor movies? And there was kind of a weird race to get to the finish line of who finishes first. And a lot of times they both came out. One would be good, one would suck. Rarely were they both good. But there just seemed to be that weird trend where everybody was doing it. And legendarily, there were some great projects that didn't get made. I had, in the height of all that, I remember somebody saying, rejected one of my scripts because it's too much like Preacher. Well, my script was nothing like Preacher whatsoever, but I'm looking around. It's like, well, we're doing Meteor and Comet at the same time. Why can't I just be the bad version of the movie of the show that's already being made? Like, I'm perfectly fine to be the crappy B version of it.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing that it does it. And famously, when you were flashing back to talk about books and writers turning things into screenplays, Stephen Pressfield, legend of Bagger Vance, of other things, who's also a phenomenal novelist. He wrote one of my favorite books, Gates of Fire, which is the kind of very serious, very well researched and dramatically amazing version of the Spartan 300 stand at Thermopylae. Now you got Frank Miller doing 300, which is amazing in its own right. The comic, the movie, all that is brilliant in its own way, but it's the comic book version of the same story. And I believe, if I heard the story correctly, I think it was Mel Gibson or one of the big studios was trying to get the Gates of Fire made, and that would have been in that same kind of thing. You'd have two movies on the same theme of different styles, and it's kind of sad to me that the Gates of Fire didn't make it because it was the serious version of that, and I think it was like the high. It would have been the Braveheart version of that, and that takes nothing away from 300, which it's just like who can not like 300 and all its just cheesy glory and amazing stuff, but the Gates of Fire, the Pressfield version of that, who was a great novelist and screenwriter, that would have just been probably Academy Award winning, mind blowing,
would have been
great movies of all time. Yeah, so read that book. Don't read mine. Read Gates of Fire.
Gates of Fire. That's cool.
And watch Legends of Bagger Vance. What a movie that is.
Yeah. That's the Spartans beating each other with golf clubs. I think
that's it, man.
Yeah, something.
It's R.I.P. Rob.
We will golf in the shade. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So anyway,
you kind of.
This is Pebble Beach.
You kind of answered it already of like kind of the shift into novels of, why focus on a novel rather than a screenplay. But tell us the inspiration for whatever happened to Uncle Ed, and
Yeah.
what led to writing that.
My inspiration was groupies. I wanted to write something that would be amazing, and tons of goth groupies would descend upon my place and make me happy for the rest of my life. No, it kind of, the story took too long to develop, but it kind of took elements from my life and places I'd been and people I'd been, all these great rich movies that I was watching. I'm so influenced, like when you said earlier, Tremors was such a huge influence on me. Actually, I saw Tremors after I had the original idea for Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed. But similar movies in that vein. Tremors is in a way is kind of a distillation of those brilliant 80s movies that I love, from everything from American Werewolf in London to Gremlins, House, Fright Night, that had that wonderful mix of comedy, not outright comedy, but humor and comedy within wonderful horror and mixed genres and imagination. And then you finally get to this, again, trip to espouse on Tremors quite a bit. You could have that terrific movie without the monsters. You could just watch Val and the guys just hang around and be dudes in a weird desert town forever. Like, I've lived in places like that. I've known people like that. And they managed to catch that zeitgeist of them so perfectly in the chemistry. And then suddenly there's giant worm things from prehistoric times, and it just becomes just the brilliant movie and series that it is. So
I think that's a really brilliant way of discussing it, because I was talking about Godzilla -1, not comedy at all, but that was when I was like telling people about it who are not into monster movies. I go, you don't understand, like, this is an incredible movie, and then all of a sudden Godzilla's here. Like, it's like it's so good, and Godzilla is there. Like, Godzilla doesn't actually have to be there for that movie to be incredible. And you're absolutely right with Tremors. Like, it's one of the most quotable movies between my brother and I. Like, just hanging with Val and Earl is so much fun.
Yeah. Well, I've always said that's to me, and I think many other smarter people have realized that Stephen King, so many other great writers, the testament to the story is when you take all the genre elements out, you still have a story about people, characters, places, everything that you can watch and be interested in. And then when you add the 500-foot tall big green, the best version of the big green fire-breathing Godzilla ever, it elevates it that much more. And it goes back to elements of storytelling, which every writer knows and some achieve to greater or lesser success, is creating good characters, investing in the characters, making the reader, the audience, however, invest in the characters, have a little bit of them projecting themselves, believing it's them, but you care when bad things happen. And that's the difference between fluff and real serious works of art. And like you said, I mean, come on, Godzilla -1, I'm blown away. I think I've seen it 12 times now. Big Godzilla fan. Nothing else in the pantheon comes close. And it's such an amazing movie. And it's about so much stuff. If you haven't seen it, see it. I won't spoil it and go on to that, but it's incredible. But even in American Werewolf in London, you can say that it's a joke version of a werewolf. But come on, it's two best freaking friends. They get attacked by a werewolf, and then there's the love story, and you actually give a crap about David and all these terrible things that's happening to him. And House. Same thing. William Catt moves into a house that's got these weird haunted flashbacks and things from his past that are haunting him. And so many great, great characters. And I'll espouse again, Fright Night. Every one of us was that kid watching the late night horror host. And then suddenly the vampires move in next door. And that's some of the best vampires ever done. That just the original, I think it's Chris Sarandon plays the head vampire. And like, wow, just off the charts. What a great in camera, there's great special effects, but the in camera work and the editing and it's all about the characters, and it's just so cool. So all of those things influenced me when I was coming up with this story. And again, elements from all other different places. And it started off as a short story, which I turned into a novella. Eventually, I did make a screenplay version of it that didn't get a lot of reads, but everyone who read it really, really liked it. But there wasn't enough room in the screenplay format, as I mentioned before, to kind of expand the story like I wanted. As you've seen, I flash back and forth from the past to the present, really getting to know the main character, but even the side characters. I take my time to give every side character a moment so that even if they appear only once, you understand them and they're real. You go to the grocery store and you buy something late at night to avoid the horrors of your gothic home, and the checkout girl is a real person. So I always strive to do that. It's kind of like life that, there's the main characters, but we're also non-player characters. But even even playing games or in life, the non-player characters have to be real and feel, the world has to feel lived in. So anyway, long-winded way of saying that's what I did. Tried to do in the screenplay, couldn't quite make it, and then went back and was able to expand all that in the novel. And really proud that I managed to give all those side characters moments and bits, a lot of which pay off story-wise, character-wise, but I really drill in the main character, Max, as you're seeing. I managed to really, really let you know what's going on in this guy's head and outside of his head.
For all of the Hollywood execs listening that haven't read the book yet,
we love you so much.
I do think
they haven't. I thought they'd all read it.
You guys have heard me talk about it before, but my own book, Rat Race, it's out there. No, I think that kind of what you're talking about, though, actually lines up great for like a 6 or 10 episode like mini series, because you do get to like. I think these sorts of TV shows do a really good job of delving into the character's past, right? Where you can start the episode off with a flashback or something like that, and then move into the story. I actually really, that was my first book that I wrote, was like kind of a space adventure, and that was the whole for me, that was the whole premise. I thought about it like a TV show where there was a flashback, and then it led into a meaningful moment in the story. I think it's just a fun way to experience and get to know the characters while like living in the action, right? It doesn't feel like exposition. You're moving forward even in a flashback.
Yeah, and you're not trying to cram everything in or leave things out. I think England, the UK did it best. A lot of BBC dramas, but also a lot of European stuff, and we've picked up the mantle of that, doing the limited series. Like it's too much for a movie. Well, I think the American way is kind of let's make plan like Lord of the Rings. That's an obvious one. Let's make 3 movies out of it. So there's just too much for one movie. That's always kind of been there. But the TV version, that the limited series is great. And sadly, we also have the inadvertently limited series here now, where something's terrific after one season and they just cancel it. So it becomes a backwards limited series. But when you plan it that way, I think it's amazing. And Mike Flanagan does that so well in the horror space, doing it with the haunting stuff and his other works. And I think other people are doing that too, where you plan to do it 1 or 2 seasons and just to expand that story. And I think that's wonderful. And as much as I still love the film format, the 90 to 120, or in some cases 480-minute versions of things.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. You were saying that it's hard to sell 120-minute or 120-page screenplay for what should be a 120-minute movie. I'm like, I'm clamoring for a 120-minute movie. Like, please release like an hour 45-minute movie. Like, I don't know what's happening. Not everything needs to be 3 hours long.
There were things called intermissions back in the day. Mad World has an intermission. That's one of the most brilliant movies ever, and it's really a first half and a second half. And think about that. When movies were so long, you had to have an intermission. But that's pushed, of course, by exhibitors. You make certain amount of money, and the shorter the movie, the more screenings you cram in during the day. And if if it's 3 hours long, you get 3 showings a day as opposed to this. So plus attention spans just across the world, including mine. I think there's this collective ADD happening in the entire planet, and that's driven by social media, by YouTube, by shorts and everything, some of which are brilliant. I'm not against that, everything, but literally, reading about it, that teachers have a hard time getting kids to pay attention for more than 30 seconds to anything. So, whether it's an evolution of the human attention span or just program, because this is what sold last week, it is harder and harder to get people to pay attention to things. So I'm losing my train of thought on that, because I saw a squirrel.
Welcome to NewWayStories, man. You fit right in. It's beautiful. We were not fazed by it at all.
But then movies come out like things that you have to pay attention to. Weapons is amazing and does the Rashomon storytelling, and you have to actually pay attention to what's going on. The new Avatar, there is a world, and people do want long form storytelling still, and that's also a Hollywood thing. Is kind of not all of the people, but there is a knee jerk reaction to what's the trend this week, and if the trend is shorter, or if the executives can't have enough time, honestly, to read stuff. It's just kind of a reflection of the rest of the world. And honestly, again, that's kind of Hollywood makes what sells. Yeah. There's a lot of criticism to that. I know people a couple years older than me is like, I don't make stuff that I watch anymore. I haven't watched TV in 62 years. Well, why should they make something for you? Because you just admitted that you don't watch it.
Right.
I'm not going to a theater. Well, then they don't give a damn about you because you don't give a damn about them. And that works both ways. If you did make content, people would go back broad, real quick thought. It was a broad thing. Is Hollywood hates westerns? They never make westerns, and every time they make a western, people go to it in droves, assuming it's a good western.
Performs well,
and then, but good luck trying to sell a western if you're not some big time writer director.
Right, if you're not Tarantino.
Never going to happen. So it's frustrating in that respect because the audiences are there.
That's funny. It's the industrial complex of entertainment media in general is interesting because I think it's kind of just like a whatever stage we're in of capitalism. And I'm not an anti-capitalist, but it is kind of, I think, a sign of the times that, like, when you had Walt Disney making Snow White, he was making that, and he was making a pretty reasonable salary. He wasn't living in a mansion as somebody who owned his own movie studio, and whenever they would make profits, he would dump it back into the studio because he really seemed to just enjoy telling stories and developing new mediums. But the way that the industry has progressed, and I'm not saying this is bad, I'm just saying it is, like, for better or for worse. You don't have as many people that don't have an obligation to shareholders. And that's a real thing. The obligation to shareholders is not it's not nothing. It's an actual substantial thing. If people are investing, you have to make them money. It's a moral obligation. And so it's an interesting thing. Even again, my knowledge is very limited to obviously one special interest, but you had Michael Eisner even as the CEO of Disney in the 90s, and people didn't like a lot of stuff that he did, but he was the guy that went to school for literature and then became a CEO. And so a lot of stuff that he did was really art forward stuff, but I think you just have to kind of get the right alchemy there, and it's hard.
Yeah. It's an interesting business, and publishing is like that too. The music industry is the same way, where you have this, where you have a collision of art and business, where it should be a synergy. And we're in this late stage capitalism, especially in America right now, where, and I'm again not against capitalism, but the extreme form that we have, where the only thing that matters is the dollar this quarter. And the shareholder, but no, they're actually what got you there, what makes the money. And that ties into, I'm blue collar. I grew up blue collar. I'm working class, and I may work white collar sometimes. But at the end of the day, if you don't have people making your widget and then buying your widget, you don't have a company. And that ties into the race to AI. Oh, great. AI is wonderful. It's going to replace all the workers. Well, good. It's done. Now who's going to buy your crap? Job anymore. No one can buy anything, and again, so that ties into selfishness and greed and human psychology and all that. But the best people, like you said, Eisner and others of that ilk, that have the creative balance, they recognize. And sometimes you've got to let a creative person just run on a tangent, because these things that you don't even think are going to make money. No one, I think it was William Goldman, probably the greatest screenwriter ever, and one of the amazing people. I think it was his quote that said, "Nobody knows nothing." If anybody knew what made a hit movie, made a hit book, if there was an actual formula to it, every movie would be a hit.
Yeah, there would never be a flop.
There would never be a flop. And we're trying that. There's the algorithms, either it's the Netflix or the Amazon or whatever streamer, they have the algorithms and it's driving to what people watch that, and YouTube, and is necessarily popular the most important thing, because you go down that circular rabbit hole of everybody's suddenly watching the same thing and it's all derivative. And then suddenly everybody's bored, back to the attention span. I'm bored with that now. I'm bored with meteor movies. And then somebody comes along with a comet movie. Ooh, the next new thing. And then the algorithm
like a
races
meteor
off
movie,
against
but
that.
with a tail.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's a good pitch. It's like a meteor with a tail. Dude, you're made. You're gold. I hear your phone ringing right now.
It's right now, yeah.
And the cover of the DVD case says the meteor, but it has a big butt. It's meteor with a tail.
This is
But yeah, some of the greatest things are the pure creations that come out of nowhere. And we're definitely in this, especially in Hollywood. It's not just the capitalism clash and the shareholders want their money. And that drives over the last 10, 15, 20 years of the extreme intellectual property IP purchasing. As I used to say, nobody wants to see a movie about, or no executive wants to buy or make a movie about a kid who gets bitten by a radioactive spider and gets superpowers. Everybody wants to see and buy Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's intellectual property because it's pre-marketed. It has a set fan base. It has a rich, the original creators made this rich character and world about it. And so it's easier to go into that whole world. But we're so driven by that. And then somebody comes up with something completely original. And like one of my favorite series forever, came out recently, but like, who saw John Wick coming?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, kaboom. And suddenly here's your franchise that's going off forever and is amazing, fun filmmaking and an iconic character. And I just love when atom bombs drop like that while everybody's chasing the latest best-selling this, whatever, the latest comic book that nobody's bought or remaking the same thing over and over. Something comes out of nowhere and kaboom. And then
some of those things are slow burns. Like John Wick was out for 4 years before it was a cultural.
It really took off.
That's really interesting.
I worked on, I've done all three of the Taken movies. I worked on the Los Angeles version of those. And I remember making the first one. Yeah, it really was. But the first one, it was a good script. Great to be working with Liam Neeson. Awesome to have him doing, one of the leading parts and just such a cool guy. And no one expected that to become a multi-billion-dollar franchise, I don't think.
Crazy.
It is. We were all dedicated to it. The French were amazing to work for. It was the whole Luc Besson crew, the Europa Corps people. They were amazing. They were working on it with us, came over here for our portion of it. And just everyone collectively, it was a great film, great time. But then when it came out, there was an email chain that, everybody, the director, some of the producers, everyone, and suddenly it's out and then it made 100 million. And this doesn't happen in film. Like suddenly, I'm on an email chain with all the other department heads and the director and the producers. And it's kind of like this, holy shit, guys, we had $100 million. And then, are you effing kidding me? Like half of it was in French. I had to translate it. And like, wow. Again, everyone wants that to happen. But again, that's an old school movie. I mean, the first one is older now. I lost track, but 15 years ago or more. But it was that old school filmmaking where you didn't start on the first page with a big explosion or something. It was a slow burn. You get to know the character. And then eventually when you really get to know the character, it pays off.
All of a sudden I have a particular set of skills actually means something.
Yeah, exactly. And he's, it's a little bit more than my dad's a TV repairman. He can fix it or I can fix it. Spicoli, there's your pitch. Spicoli has a particular set of skills, but and it was amazing to work on that and have been part of all three of those films. But again, something that came out of nowhere. That wasn't, as far as I know, that wasn't based on intellectual property. And the other one of my favorite movies, maybe it was some weird French comic that I don't know, but The Fifth Element.
Yeah,
I didn't even like The Fifth Element when I first saw it. I don't know what was wrong with me, and I've watched it 300 times now. And it's just become this cultural icon of brilliant filmmaking and hilarity. And thank goodness for that, for getting made. All came out of that. So it happens. That's a long way of saying this weird Hollywood and world obsession with, chasing shareholder value, chasing money over all else. You just got to let art breathe. Sometimes you just got to give money to a creator and let them create something weird.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
I miss that. And I think it's always kind of a little bit of nostalgia, rose-colored glasses. But I do miss this idea that like most of the cool stuff isn't IP. And it's just someone came up with this freaking crazy thing called The Fifth Element. And then they put it on screen like that. I miss that. I would like.
You really miss
I
it.
do.
And like you say, if you'd actually went back in a chart and some of these biggest selling things like the Saw franchise, I remember when that first came out, the little teaser trailer came out, and I was an executive at the time, and the tape went around to everybody, and you're like, we're all watching it in the office. Go, what? Wait, what's this?
That's
like
funny.
somebody did just this amazing, cool thing, and again, so many times that happened. Paranormal Activity did that.
Yeah.
You know, again, it's like all that stuff setting right there. And it's also as a writer, whenever you see one of those ideas where somebody just knocks it out of the ballpark with which is such a common knowledge gimmick. And you're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? God, because I'm only adequate, because I have only adequate. That's why.
Saw holds a special place in my heart. That was the first time I held a girl's hand during Saw. I go, don't worry, I'll keep you safe.
And then she said, "Oh, would you like to play a game?"
That's the proper joke.
If you can dig this key out of your eye socket, I'll kiss you on the mouth.
Done. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
He
or
turns
better yet.
back, his eyes already fully dislodged.
And if you go back to the greatest gag ever in The Haunting, you're holding her hand and you look over and she's 3 seats away. Whose hand am I holding? Yeah.
Oh man, Eric, this has been so much fun, and thank you so much for the conversation. Man, I feel like I could keep chatting about this stuff for another 2 hours, but want to be respectful of your time. And yeah, I really appreciate it for you jumping on.
Well, I appreciate being here. It's great. Wonderful to meet you. And hopefully your audience has some fun with this, learns something, and becomes big time screenwriters or writers. And my whole goal is to inspire people to follow their art, be true to themselves, and buy 100 copies of my books for all their Christmas giving. And I'll see you at the premiere.
Hey, let's go. I'll link it in the show description. The book has been a ton of fun so far. So I highly suggest it, especially if you are into fun horror is kind of like how I describe it. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but it's a horror novel, but it is a lot of fun to read.
And as a trigger warning, do not read the torture scene to the kid. Just keep that one to yourself.
Oh, okay, done.
You'll get there soon.
Yeah,
he already did.
He loves
there's a short portion where it gets a little less fun, but then it gets ramps back up
prepaying
again.
for the therapy now. Then
can you tell the listeners? I know the name of the book. Can you tell the listeners the title of the book and remind them Eric's full name?
Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed, Eric Miller.
Phenomenal.
You on social media? Do you do that?
I do infrequently. I'm Raging Eric on, I believe, Instagram and the Facebooks. I've got to get off my butt and promote more and do things, and but put weird pictures of cats up, which I do quite frequently. So, and I'm on my website is Eric Miller Writes, Eric with a C, and my small publishing company is bigtimebooks.com, and all that's on the Amazons and the Barnes and Nobles and wherever the youths peruse things these days.
I love it. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow Eric, support his stuff, and we'll see you guys next week.